The sun cast a golden hue over the bustling streets of Ajadi, where the name Kitan was often whispered among the locals. Kitan was the epitome of beauty, a woman whose presence could make time stand still. Her flawless skin, almond-shaped eyes, and radiant smile had become the stuff of legend. Men desired her, and women feared her. But Kitan was not just known for her beauty. She was infamous for her affairs with the men of the town, married or not. One sweltering afternoon, Aduni, a young wife with tear-streaked cheeks, stood nervously at Kitan's doorstep. The desperation in her eyes was palpable as she knocked on the door, her heart pounding in her chest. When the door swung open, Kitan appeared, draped in a silk wrapper that clung to her calves. She looked at Aduni with mild curiosity. "What do you want?" Kitan asked, her voice cool and detached. Aduni swallowed hard, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Please, Kitan, I beg you. Leave my husband alone. We have 2 small children. They need their father." Kitan's eyes narrowed as she leaned against the doorframe. "Your husband came to me, Aduni. I didn't force him. If you were taking care of him, he wouldn't have come to me in the first place. Please," Aduni pleaded, her hands clasped together in desperation. "We were happy before he met you. I'll do anything, just let him go." Kitan sighed and shook her head. "It's not my business to fix your marriage. Maybe you should be a better wife." With that, she shut the door in Aduni's face, leaving the young woman to weep on her doorstep. Inside, Kitan's phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Ademoyetv, Aduni's husband. "Can't stop thinking about you," the message read. Kitan smirked as she typed back, "Same here. Tonight." Kitan grew up without her parents. Her mother had died when she was barely 2 years old. She died from a fatal condition. Kitan didn't know who her father was. She hadn't seen or met him before. When her mother died, Abike, her mother's younger sister, took care of her like her own daughter. Despite her callous demeanor, Kitan's aunt, Abike, had always been a voice of reason in her life. One evening, as the sun dipped under the horizon, sending long shadows across the open windows, Abike sat across from Kitan in the cozy living room. "Kitan, my dear," Abike began, her voice gentle but firm, "this path you're on will only bring you heartache. You can't build your life on the ruins of others' happiness. I raised you better than this." Kitan rolled her eyes and sipped from her glass of wine. "Auntie, you worry too much. I'm fine. These men choose to be with me. It's not like I'm forcing them." Abike reached across the table and placed a hand on Kitan's arm. "Kitan, there's more to life than money and attention. You need to think about your future. One day, all of this will end, and what will you have left?" Kitan shrugged off her aunt's hand. "I know what I'm doing, Auntie. I'll settle down when I find the right man. Besides, I'm still young." Abike sighed deeply, knowing that her words were falling on deaf ears. "Just remember, Kitan, the choices you make today will shape your tomorrow." But Kitan was too caught up in her world of parties, shopping sprees, and secret rendezvous to heed her aunt's advice. Her life was a whirlwind of indulgence, fueled by the attention and gifts from the men she entangled in her web. That was until she met Senator Ifedayo, a wealthy and powerful man introduced to her by her close friend Abeni at a lavish party one evening. The party was in full swing, the music pulsing through the air as guests mingled and danced. Kitan, dressed in a figure-hugging dress that shimmered in the dim light, was the center of attention as usual. Abeni, always on the lookout for opportunities, saw Senator Ifedayo, a man known for his influence and deep pockets, standing by the bar, surrounded by admirers. "Kitan," Abeni whispered excitedly, grabbing her friend's arm. "That's Senator Ifedayo. He's got 4 wives, but rumor has it he's always on the lookout for more. With your charm, you could easily become number 5. Kitan's eyes gleamed with interest as she surveyed the senator from across the room. He was tall, with a commanding presence and an air of authority that was impossible to ignore. "Introduce me," Kitan said, a seductive smile curling her lips. Abeni led her over, and with a few well-placed compliments and suggestive glances, Kitan soon had the senator's full attention. They spent the night talking and laughing, and by the end of the evening, Senator Ifedayo was completely smitten. For the next 5 years, Kitan played her role as the senator's mistress, receiving lavish gifts and money that allowed her to maintain her extravagant lifestyle. Kitan was bored of being a mistress for 5 years. One day, she sat thinking about how she would persuade the senator to propose to her. She contacted one of her friends, Bimbo, and explained the scenario to her. "Don't worry, Kitan, I will take you to one Baba that I know. He will solve your problem." Bimbo spoke from the other end. The next morning, Kitan and Bimbo went to Ifedayo village to see the native doctor. When they arrived, Kitan explained her situation to him. "I have the solution to your problem," the native doctor explained, pulling out a little vial of liquid. He further explained to her how she would use it. "You see this bottle? It includes a love potion charm. When he visits you, add 2 drops of this liquid to his drink. He will propose marriage to you shortly," he remarked, laughing hysterically. Kitan collected the charm. She thanked the native doctor before leaving with her friend. The following week, Senator Ifedayo paid his normal visit. She welcomed him. She asked if he wanted something to drink. He consented to a glass of water. Kitan went to the kitchen, took out the love potion charm from the kitchen cupboard, and stealthily put 2 drops into the water. She served him water, which he drank. Kitan was pleased that her dream of becoming a wife was going to come true. They spoke, laughed, and cuddled together. Throughout their conversation, Kitan expected him to propose marriage to her, but he never mentioned anything about her being one of his wives, much less marriage. This made Kitan concerned as to why the charm was not working. Months passed, and despite all her efforts, the senator never once suggested they get married. Kitan grew increasingly frustrated, especially as she approached her 40s. She had hoped to secure her future as his wife, but time was running out. Then, one fateful evening, as Kitan lounged in her opulent apartment, her phone rang. The news on the other end shattered her world. Senator Ifedayo had been killed in a car accident. Kitan's heart sank, her mind racing as the reality of her situation set in. She was alone, with no marriage proposal, no inheritance, and no idea of what to do next. The years that followed were harsh. Kitan's beauty, once her greatest asset, began to fade. Her finances dwindled as she struggled to maintain the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. The friends who once envied her now pitied her, and the men who had once flocked to her side no longer called. Desperate, Kitan prayed for a rich husband, begging God to forgive her for her past mistakes. She attended every social event she could, hoping to meet someone who would save her from her dire situation. One day, she received an invitation from an old friend to attend her younger sister's wedding. Kitan hesitated, knowing she would face the scrutiny of those who knew her past. But she decided to go, hoping that the wedding might offer a chance for her to meet someone new. The wedding was a grand affair, with guests dressed in their finest attire. Kitan arrived late, her heart pounding as she stepped into the hall. She could feel the eyes of the other women on her, and she knew they were whispering about her. As she made her way to her seat, one of her old acquaintances, Omotayo, approached her with a smug smile. "Kitan, it's been ages. How have you been? And how is your husband doing these days?" Kitan forced a smile, her heart sinking. She knew Omotayo was mocking her, pretending not to know that she was still unmarried. "Oh, you know," Kitan replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Life is full of surprises. How are you?" Omotayo smirked, her eyes gleaming with malice. "I'm doing wonderfully, thank you. My husband and I just celebrated our 10th anniversary. It's so nice to see you out and about. I was beginning to think you had gone into hiding." The women at the table chuckled, exchanging knowing glances. Kitan felt a wave of humiliation wash over her, but she refused to let it show. "How nice for you," Kitan said coolly. "I'm sure you deserve all the happiness in the world." As Omotayo sauntered away, Kitan's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to leave, to escape the judgmental stares and cruel whispers, but she knew she had to stay strong. The ceremony continued, and when the bride and groom took the dance floor, the atmosphere lightened. The MC then announced, "Now, we want all the single men in the hall to find a lady they are attracted to and bring her to the stage for a special dance." Kitan cringed at the thought of being ignored, but to her surprise, a handsome young man named Lekon made his way towards her. He was handsome, with an air of confidence that caught the attention of many ladies in the room. "Would you like to dance with me?" Lekon asked, his voice deep and smooth. Kitan blinked in surprise, momentarily stunned. "Are you sure?" she asked, unsure if he was serious. Lekon chuckled. "Of course. You're the most beautiful woman here. The women at the table stared in shock as Lekon extended his hand to Kitan. Omotayo's face twisted with jealousy, and Kitan took Lekon's hand, and together they made their way to the dance floor. The whispers around them grew louder, but Kitan no longer cared. For the first time in a long while, she felt a glimmer of hope. As they danced, Kitan couldn't help but notice how different Lekon was from the other men she had known. He was attentive, kind, and seemed genuinely interested in her. As Kitan was ready to leave the wedding, Lekon approached her and insisted on taking her home. Although she hesitated at first, his charming smile convinced her to accept. As they sat in the car, Lekon made light conversation, making Kitan laugh, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in what felt like years. Lekon introduced himself, and Kitan also introduced herself. When they arrived at her house, Lekon walked her to the door. "I really enjoyed tonight, Kitan," Lekon said, his eyes locking with hers. "I'd love to see you again." Kitan smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. "I'd like that too." Over the next few weeks, Lekon and Kitan grew closer. He took her on dates to the finest restaurants, introduced her to his circle of elite friends, and showered her with gifts. For the first time in years, Kitan felt truly cherished. She was cautious at first, wary of being hurt again, but Lekon's sincerity slowly melted her defenses. One evening, as they dined at a luxurious rooftop restaurant, Lekon reached across the table and took Kitan's hand. "Kitan," he began, his voice serious, "I know we haven't known each other for long, but I feel a deep connection with you. I've been searching for someone like you my whole life. Will you marry me?" Kitan's heart skipped a beat. The proposal was everything she had ever dreamed of, and yet, a small voice in the back of her mind warned her to be careful. But the longing for love and stability overshadowed her doubts. "Yes, Lekon," she whispered, tears of joy welling up in her eyes. "Yes, I will marry you." Their wedding was the talk of the town, a grand affair that made headlines on social media. Kitan couldn't believe how quickly her life had changed. She was finally married to a wealthy man who adored and cherished her. She was happy she had left her troubled past behind. As the months passed, Kitan settled into her new life as Lekon's wife. She lived in a magnificent mansion and wanted for nothing. But there was one thing she desired above all else, a child. Lekon was equally eager for them to start a family, and when Kitan discovered she was pregnant, they were both overjoyed. To express his gratitude for becoming a father, Lekon overwhelmed her with gifts. However, 6 months into the pregnancy, Kitan woke up one morning to find blood on her sheets. Panic gripped her as she screamed for Lekon, who rushed her to the hospital. But it was too late. Kitan had miscarried. She was inconsolable, but Lekon comforted her, assuring her that they would try again. Lekon returned one afternoon furious with his wife. "Why is it taking you so long to get pregnant, woman? I'm overweighting," abruptly, he said and turned to go. Kitan was taken aback. This was a side of her husband she had never seen before. He returned home later that evening and apologized to Kitan for yelling at her. He admitted to her that he had no idea what had overcome him. They hugged after Kitan showed him forgiveness. One afternoon, she found she was pregnant once more. Her heart leaped with delight as she told her husband the wonderful news. Lekon was overjoyed to hear this news and lavished her with numerous gifts. The pattern repeated itself with each pregnancy. Every 6 months, like clockwork, Kitan would miscarry. She was heartbroken and confused. The doctors assured her that she was healthy, but they couldn't explain the repeated losses. Kitan noticed something strange about Lekon. Every 6 months, on the night of her miscarriage, he would leave their bed at exactly midnight and return hours later. When she asked him about it, he would brush it off, claiming he had work to do. At first, Kitan thought nothing of it, but as the pattern continued, her suspicion grew. She became pregnant again, and as the 6th month approached, her anxiety grew. Determined to find out what Lekon was up to, she decided to follow him one night. As soon as Lekon left the room, Kitan waited a few minutes before slipping out of bed and trailing him silently. She watched as he made his way to a secluded part of the mansion that she had never been to before. There, he opened a hidden door that led to an underground basement. Kitan's heart pounded as she followed him down the stairs, her breath catching in her throat when she saw what was inside. The basement was filled with strange items, red cloths, candles, and a large airy mortar and pestle. But what caught her attention the most was a paper on the altar, a copy of her baby's scan. Kitan's blood ran cold as she watched Lekon place the scan into the airy mortar and raised a pestle to pound it. She realized with horror that this ritual was what had caused her miscarriages. Unable to contain her shock, Kitan gasped, and Lekon whipped around to face her, his eyes wide with terror. "Kitan!" he exclaimed, dropping the pestle. "What are you doing here? What am I doing here?" Kitan echoed, her voice trembling with rage. "What are you doing, Lekon? What is all this? Why are you destroying our baby?" Lekon's face twisted in desperation. "Kitan, you don't understand. This is the only way to maintain my wealth. If I don't do this, I'll lose everything, and so will you." A little narrative about Lekon. Lekon used to be quite poor. He had nothing to his name. He was tired of his impoverished life. During his employment search, he met Tunji, an old classmate. Tunji, who used to be impoverished like him, suddenly got affluent. Lekon was startled at his wealth. Lekon had pleaded with him to help him become wealthy. Tunji asked Lekon whether he was prepared to do anything. Lekon acknowledged that he is willing to do anything. Tunji took him to a herbalist, who informed him that in order for him to sustain his wealth and become wealthy, he needed to get married, obtain a copy of his baby's ultrasound scan, and then perform a ritual every 6 months during the pregnancy. He would pound the ultrasound scan and recite an incantation at midnight in hopes of causing his wife to miscarry and increasing his wealth. Additionally, the herbalist informed him that he was free to wed as many ladies as he pleased. He can send them away, and choose another lady to marry if he learns that his wife is no longer able to conceive after numerous miscarriages. The herbalist then placed a condition on him. He warned that if he stopped the ritual, which is a lifetime endeavor, he would become exceedingly destitute, and go insane forever. The second condition is that, he must not be discovered by any of the women while carrying out the rite. If he is, he will experience convulsions before passing away. Lekon nodded without thinking. The herbalist gave him a mortar and a pistol in addition to telling him the incantation for the ritual. While driving back, Tunji assured Lekon that he would help him out by offering him a house, a car, and some money to help him take care of himself and find a lovely wife. Until the day he becomes wealthy, Lekon thanked Tunji for his assistance. Few months later, Lekon became incredibly rich. He followed the herbalist's instructions to the letter, marrying several women. When he discovers they are no longer able to conceive, after a string of miscarriages, he will either divorce them or send them away and find another lady. He carried on in this manner up until he met Kitan. Kitan stared at him in disbelief. "So you've been sacrificing our children just to stay rich? How could you? I'd rather be poor than live with this kind of evil." Lekon stepped towards her, his hands trembling. "Kitan, please, you don't know what's at stake. I'll be dead if I don't complete the ritual. Please, give me the scan." But Kitan backed away, clutching the scan to her chest. "No, I won't let you do this. You're a monster, Lekon. How many other women have you done this to?" Lekon's expression turned cold, and he took a step closer, his voice low and menacing. "You're making a big mistake, Kitan. If you don't give me that scan, they'll come for me." Kitan's heart raced as she realized the gravity of the situation. But before she could respond, Lekon's body began to convulse violently. He collapsed to the floor, his limbs twisting and contorting in unnatural ways. Kitan watched in horror as he writhed on the ground, his eyes rolling back in his head. Suddenly, he stopped moving, his body going limp. Kitan stood frozen, her mind reeling from what she had just witnessed. Then, without warning, Lekon bolted upright and dashed out of the basement, disappearing into the night. Kitan was left standing alone in the eerie silence, clutching the scan paper, her heart pounding in her chest, shaking and terrified. Kitan knew she couldn't stay in the mansion any longer. She packed her belongings and fled to a faraway place, leaving behind all of Lekon's wealth and the life she had once dreamed of. She couldn't believe how far she had fallen, and how her past had come back to haunt her in the most terrifying way. Kitan started a new life, determined to make amends for her past mistakes. She prayed daily for forgiveness and for the strength to move forward. 4 months later, she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, whom she named Ifedayo, a symbol of the unconditional love she had found within herself. Kitan promised to raise her daughter with the values she had learned the hard way, vowing never to let her repeat the same mistakes. She realized that true wealth came from within, and that happiness could never be built on the suffering of others. In the end, Kitan found peace, knowing that she had broken the cycle of greed and deceit, and had chosen a path of love and redemption. Thank you for staying with me to the end. I hope you enjoyed this tale. What lessons did you learn from this story? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, click the notification bell to stay up to speed on my latest stories. See you in my next tale. Bye for now.